Welcome to day 14 of How to Grow Your Donor Base in 20 Days. We are going to talk today about focusing on donor retention. My name is Mandy Pierce and I'm the owner of Funding for Good, for those of you who haven't met me before, and this is the front porch of our home offices in Hickory, North Carolina. So focusing on donor retention is a pretty big part of increasing your donor base. You can have a donor in year 1 and not keep them to year 2, which doesn't do a lot for your donor base, and then you have to go out and find someone to replace them. Donor retention is the number of people that you retain a year after their first gift. So they make a second gift after that first year. And the way you calculate donor retention is taking the number of current donors and dividing it by the number of donors in your original year. For example, let's say last year was our first year, 2016, and we had 100 donors at December 31st. Okay, over the course of the year, we've had 100 donors. So this year, 2017, on December 31st, I'm going to run my donor retention report. And all the donors who gave to me last year that also gave to me again this year will be the number of donors that I retained. So let's say that number was 43. Then my donor retention rate would be 43%. So it helps to know what your donor retention rate is, because you're losing money when you're not keeping the donors that are coming in the door. You're spending more money to acquire new donors. A lot of people who have donor software, for example, Bloomerang or Blackballed, you can go in and run a report. Bloomerang actually set up for some of my clients where on their main page, as soon as they log into the system every day, it tells them your donor retention rate is, and the number's already there for them. So it really helps you keep track of, this is how many donors you're keeping, this is how many donors you're losing, this is your average gift, those types of things. It costs 6 to 7 times more to acquire a new donor than it does to keep a donor that you already have. So keep that in mind as you're figuring out how much you're going to spend and what your budget is on donor acquisition mailings and getting the new donors in, and then look at your budget for what are you doing to keep donors, first-time donors, recurring donors, donors who've given to you over the course of their lifetime, donors who are having a 5-year anniversary. Like, what are you doing to make those folks feel like more than a transaction once a year when they give you a gift? What are you doing to make them feel like a part of your organization? What are you doing to keep them engaged, keep them interested, to participate? Part of that is, as we talked about in the very beginning of the series, part of your plan, part of what you're going to do every year to make sure that you are stewarding all of your donors in an appropriate way. And people want to feel good about giving to your organization, and you want people to want to continue coming back to participate in whatever it is that you're doing, whether it's activities or fundraisers or community events or contributing to you once a year. Not only do you want to retain donors, but you want to grow that donor base. So if I've been giving to you for 5 years at $100 a year, at some point someone should have evaluated me as a donor and said, maybe it's time to make an ask to Mandy to give $125 a year. So not only do you keep the ones you have, but you sort of move them up as you can to increase their gift, increase their participation in your organization. Maybe you ask them to volunteer for an event. Maybe you invite them to an event that you're going to give them a free ticket to an event because they've been giving to you for 5 years. Maybe you're going to invite them to join a society. Maybe you have something that is a society that you've created for people who are going to give to your endowment. We used to have something called the Heritage Society at the Y. I have a client that has something they call the Center Circle, and they do different things for those groups of individuals because they're giving at a different level, and they've been able to move them up over the course of time. Be aware of some of your metrics. And there's another fact that I read recently that said for every $100 you get in new contributions with new donors, or from an increase of a current donor, for whatever $100 that you're getting that comes in new, you're losing $92 in donors that aren't staying. So you're basically making $8 for the work that you're doing. So think about that really hard. Do you want to continuously be treading water, or do you actually want to get to a place where you're above water, doing well, and if you fell just a little, you'd still be doing really well. You wouldn't be in crisis mode. So I encourage you to think about that as you go through. This is day 14 of How to Grow Your Donor Base in 20 Days. Please feel free to subscribe to our page or join us on Facebook at Funding for Good.